So this is your immune system, okay? Your immune system has two functions. It has a passive function and it has an active function. The passive function is your white cells in your body, in your bloodstream, are called macrophages. And what they're doing is they're constantly patrolling, and anything in the body that are dead cells, and our cells are constantly dying and replacing, constantly dying and replacing by the millions per day. So those macrophages are around the body removing those. And as well, it removes non-living cells. Now, there's a difference between dead cells and non-living cells. For example, if you're cooking and you drop white flour on the ground and it just kind of explodes, and you inhale it, you're going to get cells into your system, into your lungs. At the beginning, you go, ha! You achoo, and you get part of it out. It's not an allergic reaction, it's just the body saying, hey, out. But part of it, you've absorbed it. And so these macrophages will go around and go into the lungs and actually remove these cells that are not really dead. Flour's not dead, but it's not really a living organism. It's not like a virus, or it doesn't have thought. It's just a cell. It's the flour. So these macrophages just go around and passively pick up this stuff, swallow it, and take it out of the system. Another part of the immune system are active. These are called T cells, or the killer cells. What happens is the macrophages are going around and they detect a virus or they detect bacteria, and they say, oh, we need a little stronger. I can't just swallow this thing because then I'll get infected. So what they do is they post a flag onto these viruses or onto bacteria to say, this requires proper disposal. T cells come around, see the flags, they go to it. And what usually happens, for example, with a virus is not a cell on its own. It's kind of like a parasite. So if you have a healthy cell, what the virus will actually do, to make it more obvious, it will actually attach to a healthy cell and utilize the healthy cell because it needs everything the cell has. It doesn't have its own organism. So it comes here. So what happens is the T cells come, detect the healthy cells that are infected, and they explode them. They explode the healthy cells, and then the macrophages can come pick up the dead now cells, and it's your own cells, pick them up and clear them out as usual. What is happening in an allergy is that a non-living cell has been interpreted as a virus. So your macrophages are marking pollen as a dangerous element, and the T cells are coming in and just bombarding everything that has some of that pollen around it. So it's killing a whole bunch of healthy cells in an attempt to kill some unknown enemy that's actually not there. Why do we even get allergies? Now, interesting enough, we actually have a lot of influence in how we get allergies, very indirect influence. In this way, there's three reasons, so how? Three main reasons of how we get an allergy. One is we can actually condition the immune system to react or overreact. How do we do that? Conditioning actually started with Pavlov's dogs. Don't know if you guys are familiar with that. What it was there was a scientist who had some dogs, and what he did is every time he gave the dogs food, he would ring a bell. Give the dogs food, ring a bell. Give the dogs food, ring a bell. It got to the point that all he had to do was ring the bell, and the dogs were like, looking for the food. He had conditioned the dogs. The bells don't have food, but just the fact that the dogs heard the bell made them automatically, their whole body, expect food. Later, and this is where all this comes from, called psychoneuroimmunology, Adler, another scientist, said, well, is the immune system so independent as the scientists used to think? Or can that also be conditioned? So what he did was he took rats and he fed them water, but he wanted to put something in the water. So he actually fed them water with saccharin, so sweet water, and he injected toxins into the water, and he would feed the rats. So anytime the rats were thirsty, they would drink this water, and they were actually drinking toxins. And as they were drinking these toxins day by day, these toxins were actually having a very serious effect on their immune system. It was weakening the immune system. So he got to the point that some of the rats died, so he stopped. He said, okay, I'm going to stop giving them toxins, but he continued to give the rats water with saccharin. Well, the body had been conditioned, had learned that that water that tasted sweet was toxic. But all he was giving them was water, fresh water with a little saccharin. The rats continued to die. Their immune system continued to weaken, and they died. Why? Because the immune system had learned, conditioned, that that was actually toxic. And they continued to respond to it as if it were toxic when it was just a non-living cell in that water. Okay? So that's one of the ways we can get an allergy. Another way that we can become allergic is the nocebo effect. What is the nocebo effect? What is the placebo effect?
You think it's something, but it's not.
Yeah, you think something's going to, this thing is going to be great for you, the placebo, and it actually becomes great for you. The same can happen the opposite. You think something is going to be bad for you, and even if it isn't bad, it becomes bad, kind of like the rats. So how do we get an allergy through nocebo? For example, when the general surgeon said that secondary smoke is bad for you and can kill you, all of a sudden, a lot of people became allergic to secondary smoke because they believed it could kill them, which it might if they're in a room this small and we're all smoking, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that was a nocebo. He actually triggered that happening. Another example, very much here in California. I've been here for 5 years. Since I've been here, the amount of time that people have told me about poison oak and how bad it is, the minute we're walking, poison oak, get away from it, that thing is, oh my God, and they start telling you stories, that can trigger an allergic reaction. Because that person, when they're like, what is their body experiencing? Is their body calm and safe and feeling that everything is under control? No, their body's like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And you can actually create an allergy through a nocebo. I actually had a client who was allergic to cats, and it turned out the reason she was allergic to cats is because her grandmother, when she was really small, said, don't sit where a cat sits. It has negative energy. So interesting enough, in her 50s, she can't sit anywhere a cat has sat, or she'll have a reaction. The immune system is trying to keep her safe. Don't sit where a cat sits. She did not have it here in her radar. It was actually quite unconscious, but that's a nocebo. When you watch a documentary about how bad gluten is, how many more people become gluten intolerant? That the minute you eat something while actually having an argument with your husband, and it's the argument that upsets you, but you just see that documentary, you're like, oh, I have that gluten intolerance too. Started out, you can't see gluten anymore because your body's thinking it must be the gluten too. It doesn't know that it's actually your husband had a bad day. Another reason for this, and this is more indirect, it's called life transitions. Interesting enough, we get more allergies and we lose more allergies during life transitions than at any other time. We lose asthma between childhood and adulthood, that transition. We gain allergies between living in our parents' house and emancipating. We gain allergies after divorce. We gain allergies after a wedding. Why is this happening? If you think about it, in life transitions, we are kind of changing who we are. From being a child to being an adult, from being single to being married to maybe being single. These are big changes in who we are as a person, our identity. Who is the immune system guarding who you are. If you are in the middle of a transition and you don't know who you are, I mean, if you listen to friends who just went through a divorce, like, I don't know who I am without that, without this relationship. They're in a big life transition. They don't know who they are. And in those moments, your immune system is trying to figure it out as well. And so it is in high alert state going, who is this? Who is Dave now? Who is, now? And so what happens is during those moments, anything that might bop you, immune system's like, that's what it must be. That must be the problem. That must be what's creating so much stress in our system. Give you an example. I had a client, again, I'm expert in cat allergies. It seems to be the thing. I had a client with cat allergies, and as we went through the process, found out that I said, well, when did you start having cat allergies? And he says, I remember the day. Because 6 months after my divorce, my child brings home a stray cat. And I said, that's interesting. Were you allergic to cats before? He goes, oh no. When I was married, we had 2 cats and a dog. He goes, but during the divorce, and it was a very painful divorce, he said she got to keep the cats and the dog. I was left with nothing. And so when his daughter brought the cat home, the body saw the cat and immediately remembered the pain of the divorce. And immediately, 5 minutes later, they had to take the cat outside. From then on, he spent 35 years with a major allergy to cats and most animals, to the point that he had to have an inhaler. And it was during a moment of high stress, something happens. Okay? So this is what we're dealing with. Now, how are we going to eliminate the allergy?